the initial strategy was for Match.com to be focused on women and what they wanted out of an online matchmaking or online personals or online dating. And with the idea that if we could get the women, the men would follow. But matchmaking was mostly through newspaper ads, calling 900 numbers where people would leave a message. And the business model was based on how long those messages were. So our task was to make it a clean, well-lit space, not a sleazy, hookup just for the money kind of thing. And so we really had to recreate the category and then of course get the leadership position. And I think it's because we focused on women and what they wanted is the reason why, and we had some venture, not very much though. And that's the reason why we catapulted almost from the beginning to the leadership position.
Fran, it is so good to see you. It's been quite some time, pre-pandemic. Let's go back, Fran, kind of take us back towards the beginning of your career, if you will. Tell us what part of the world did you grow up in, and take us into those early years of building your career.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Felina, and very great to catch up with you as well. Yeah, so I'm sitting here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is where I grew up, and a small town, but a very artistic, cultural, and creative town. And my dad was in business. He sold insurance and financial services. And when I was a little girl, he talked to me, on the way to school about a deal he might be on the verge of closing or how to, be an effective salesperson. And well, I consider my early career more in marketing than in sales. I'm sure every CEO is in sales of one kind or another. Um, from Santa Fe, I went to Stanford undergrad and then did some consulting and then went to Stanford Business School. In fact, I'm having my reunion later this month for both undergrad and graduate school. And obviously that was a great time, to enter into Silicon Valley in the early 80s, Stanford being in Silicon Valley and being one of the universities that the whole thing is based on. So it was very exciting. And I developed a high interest in tech and again, marketing. So I went to business school, and after business school, I worked at the Clorox company in Oakland and did a few years doing brand marketing. And that turned out to be an excellent, excellent foundation for building internet companies. After Clorox, I spent just about a year at AAA, the Automobile Club out of San Francisco. And that actually was very helpful because that kind of marketing was more membership marketing and direct mail and one-to-one marketing, which again was really, really great to have that experience in the early days of the internet.
Talk about the inception of that company, if you
Right.
would.
So Felina, one of the things you'll learn is that I don't always come up with the idea, but I'm pretty good in executing on it. So it was in fact in 1994, I went to my business school reunion and connected with a classmate of mine, Gary Kremen, and he had started a company called Electric Classifieds and had bought a bunch of URLs like rent, apartment, car. I'm not sure if I have them all right, but he was doing all that. And the idea that he raised some money for was to create these new categories of classified advertising, but primarily get newspapers to adopt the electric classifieds platform. And Match.com was conceived to be a little bit of a proof of concept, just to get it out there. And he asked me to lead Match.com and to build the team and build the business. So I was sitting there, you know, looking at everything that's happening in San Francisco in 1994, and I'm like, I've got to be part of this, and left my cushy job to take this opportunity. And I did all the initial branding, the initial strategy. You'll appreciate this. The initial strategy was for Match.com to be focused on women and what they wanted out of an online matchmaking or online personals
Wow.
or online dating. And and with the idea that if we could get the women, the men would follow.
Yes.
And at the time, it was interesting, and maybe you remember this or not, but matchmaking was mostly through newspaper ads, calling 900 numbers where people would leave a message. And the business model was based on how long those messages were. Consequently, people left very nasty messages or had ads that say things like, I'm interested in a gangbang, okay? Because that would generate all kinds of phone calls.
Yeah.
So our task was to make it a clean, well-lit space, not a sleazy, hookup just for the money kind of thing. And so we really had to recreate the category and then of course get the leadership position. And I think it's because we focused on women and what they wanted is the reason why and we had some venture, not very much though. And that's the reason why we catapulted almost from the beginning to the leadership position. And when I talk about targeting women, it wasn't just our marketing targeting women, our marketing efforts, but it was also, you know, making sure that we had advice for safe dating, making sure the colors and things like this. But the one I usually point out, and maybe you've heard before, have you ever done any online dating?
I have actually 3 times, throughout the course of my adult
Okay,
years.
yeah, well, I have too. Have you
Yeah.
ever put your weight in pounds?
Sorry, say that again?
Have you ever had to put your weight, how much
Oh,
you weigh?
no, no, I
Oh,
have not.
well, honestly, that's because of me.
Amazing.
Because early on when we and this is before there were photos,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Believe me, in 1995, people did not have digital cameras, and people were usually dialing up, so we did not have the capacity to show photos early on.
Yeah.
So the first few questions were about how you look. And I remember distinctly the engineer coming into my office and saying, "What are the weight ranges?" I'm like, "No, we're not asking weight. No way. Women don't want that. We're going to do body type, you know?" And no other dating service that I know of has asked for weight since
Well,
then.
thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for, I mean, truly, Fran, pioneering like an entirely different business model. I mean, you've done this throughout your career. I mean, so many, you know, you know, entrance into new markets and creating these new markets. I mean, it's just,
It's
it's
been fun.
amazing.
Thank you. The other thing that I introduced, I'd like to take a little credit for, and women don't often take credit for the things that they do. So
Exactly.
let's acknowledge that is the membership business model, which is,
Mhm.
the initial idea was to charge per connection. And I
Mm,
know that no, women don't want to do that. It seems weird.
yeah.
But also, I knew from my experience at AAA that membership is a very powerful business model. And there's a lot of things that you could do with it in terms of retention rate and upselling and cross-selling and all of that. And I think that turned out to be the right business model. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And it was great fun, almost from the beginning, we were number one. Almost from the beginning, we were international. We definitely led in our category, but unfortunately, we sold it for way too little.
Mm.
We sold it in 1998 for less than $8 million.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So,
But the choice, I mean, let's talk about at the time. How did it feel at the time?
it felt bad.
Okay.
It had everything to do with perceptions
Mm,
and also being too early. So,
mm,
I know you want to celebrate exits,
yeah.
but there's a lot to be learned from an exit that doesn't go quite as well. So
Yes.
what happened was that Gary, my classmate, had left the company, and we went through a number of different CEOs, but the board was really telling them that their number one job was to try to get the classified advertising business from newspapers. And by the way, this is before there was Craigslist or eBay, okay? They were still concerned that the reputation of the online dating company could be sleazy, even though we were number one, and there are some bad dates out there. I can't deny that. But we were really delivering. In fact, I had to show that all my advertising paid back, even though we were running a social network. Okay. So Match.com was at this was number one in its category. We were generating cash, we were growing rapidly, but we were underfunded, and
Mm,
they decided to sell Match.com to put money into electric classifieds. And nobody knows about electric classifieds because it didn't work.
yeah.
Okay. My big mistake in this whole thing, I resisted. I tried to say, we shouldn't sell, we should put more money into Match. We're the number one. But again, this is so early in the internet that to some extent we didn't know how good we were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my big mistake was I should have taken the company and found the investors and led the investment team and then led the management team at least for another year. As it happened, we sold it to Send It for less than $8 million. A year later, it was sold to Ticketmaster, which really became IAC, Barry
Mm.
Diller, for $70 million.
Oh my gosh, Fran.
Okay, and I only got maybe a couple 100,000 in sort of bonuses to help everything get along. And it's not so much the money, but it is because
Yeah.
that's one way certainly Silicon Valley keeps score. But, on reflection, after the sale was done, I knew I messed up.
Mm,
And I'll tell you the reasons why. One was I wasn't a guy. I think if I were a guy, somebody would have said from the get-go, why don't you do this? Second, I don't think I had enough support. I didn't have enough support at home. I was tired. I was sort of beat down because we were not the favorite in the company, even though we were doing so well. There was not the support for female founders or entrepreneurs that there is now. And I didn't have enough confidence. I think had I had enough confidence, I would have thought about it, or I would have asked for some help, and somebody would have encouraged me to take it. So it was a hard lesson. Um, I got a do-over a few years later. So, um, and you learn, we were early. I mean, what can I tell you?
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you for all the work that you've done, and taking these learnings to support women. You have been such an amazing advocate to female founders, over the course of at least my career, everything that I've
Thank
seen.
you.
Yeah, yeah. Talk a bit about, I want to get into TrustE and the founding of that company and then the exit. And then we'll get into obviously your current business and the amazing things you're doing. If you would just touch on, just going back to some of our initial conversation here, the wild west of the internet that was, right, like pre-year 2000, you had women.com. Talk about that platform a
Yeah, I
bit.
was chief marketing officer, and we were a community and for aimed at women. Believe it or not, back in 1998, 99, there weren't that many websites. Of course, this is pre-app aimed at women. iVillage was probably the leader and was growing very quickly. And we really had all kinds of content and community aimed at women. Actually, we did go public at in I think it was October of '99, at that point, I had moved on to bluelight.com, which was a joint venture with Yahoo and SoftBank and Kmart, importantly. Um, and, that was kind of tough. By the time as typical of most executives, I was locked out of selling my shares
Mm,
during the IPO. And 6 months later, we were in the dot-com bust.
mm,
So that was disappointing, you know. Again, timing can be everything. And I took a year off about then, and then I joined TRUSTe, which is now called TrustArc,
okay.
and it's an internet privacy company. And I took that honestly, I just thought I'd be there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it was a nonprofit industry association.
Mhm.
So there wasn't really any equity or anything like that. But about really a couple of years into it, I knew we had to become a for-profit company. And we had to have technology because all the privacy threats, social media, spyware, spam, all this stuff, and now they're doing work on AI, which we didn't even imagine back then. Um, I knew that to really compete and to serve our customers and to protect consumers, there needed to be a more technology-enabled solution here. And in 2008, I convinced the board of directors, who were mostly um, privacy lawyers,
Mm,
so they're not really like venture types, that I needed to raise some money and make the company a for-profit company. And in 2008, I closed $10 million from Excel and shifted the company there. I left in 2012. I really did not want to spend 10 more years doing privacy. And the company is still privately held. Along the way, I've been able to sell some shares in the secondary market.
mm.
So it's worked out well for me. I would love them to get bought, but I have no influence on that anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to pass your babies on to somebody else. And that's what I did.
Well, I want to just pause on that for a moment because oftentimes, you know, the founder syndrome, right? You're coming up with an idea, you're leading, early stage development in a company, and a company looks very different 5, 10 years later, right?
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I still follow the company, obviously. And a lot of the people I hired are still there. So every
Um,
once in a while, I get some updates. Um,
okay.
one particular gal told me a few years ago, I said, well, what would have been different, do you think, if I had stayed on? And she said, well, you would have been more bold. And
Mm,
I kind of like that, you
yeah.
know, but I let go of that baby.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about your current business, BabyQuip. How did you come up with the idea for this?
Again, I didn't come up with the idea.
Okay, okay, perfect. How did you get involved in the early
Yeah,
stages?
but it's an interesting story. So I left TrustArc in 2012. Around that time, moved from Alameda to San Francisco, bought a house on Potrero Hill, blocks away from Airbnb,
Mm,
which was still a pretty young company.
yeah.
And this is the San Francisco syndrome. You think you're late to the game when you're actually early. And so I started renting rooms in my house in San Francisco. I didn't tell anybody for a while. I was like, I don't want to seem like I'm one of these old English matrons who's down on her luck and has to bring in boarders, you know. But I wanted to see what it was all about. And, I was renting each room for like $150 a night, and I was booked all the time. And then I bought a property in Santa Fe because I wanted to have a home here. Then I bought another one in Santa Fe. And all of a sudden, I'm in hospitality, you know? And again, my marketing background really was terrific because it's all about marketing. And I didn't know I had a flair for home decoration. Turned out that I did, and was making some real money. And that gave me the opportunity to serve on a couple of boards and to advise. And so I was advising at Women's Startup Lab, which is like a pre-accelerator for female entrepreneurs. And I met a gal from Santa Fe, as it were, who started a baby gear rental business here using a gig economy, sharing economy model. And in our first meeting, I said to her, Carrie, I should be your CEO. And she didn't say yes right away, but we started the company in May of 2016, within a few months of meeting. And that first, and from my standpoint, I was getting bored. I was doing all this um, consulting and stuff, but seeing these other companies, and of course, apps were a big thing and all of that. Gig economy was happening. The way hospitality was changing with the emergence of Airbnb and home sharing and things like that. So I was itchy. I took a look, and there was really nobody doing baby gear rental on a national basis. Nobody was leading with trust and safety, and I knew from my time at Match that trust and safety were really critical. And that first summer, I put some of my own money to see how hard is it to generate the supply? How hard is it to generate the demand? And basically, we would recruit people, mostly moms, to start out in a market, and they would get business. I mean, there was so much unmet demand for this. And here we are, almost what is it, 8 years later. It's been quite the journey. Carrie and I had cocktails on Friday. She's now doing some work with Livermore and Sandia Labs here in New Mexico. She's very happy. And it's been quite fun. I think other highlights, she left in 2017. My son, Joe, who at that point had been working at Accenture in development, was looking to do something new. He joined the team. So I have the distinct pleasure of working with my own son for 7 years. And with that comes a lot of trust and it's definitely enriched our relationship. In 2020, uh, we were on Shark Tank together,
Yeah.
and that aired on March 6th, 2020. Think about the date.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Within a
Fran.
week, everything had started to crash, but nonetheless, it was still good and it was fun to be with him. We had a party, and that was the last party a lot of people went to for a long time. We got through the pandemic. I was able to raise some money right before the Shark Tank episode and all of that. And then we got some government money, which was the first in my career. And by 21 and 22, things just started to take off, very rapidly. So it was very exciting. So at this point, BabyQuip has served almost 300,000 families.
Mm.
We are primarily in the US, Canada, but expanding to Mexico, Caribbean, um, and really we're all over the world, but our recruitment efforts are focused on Mexico and the Caribbean, you know. Um, we have about 10,000 affiliate relationships, and we have a 94 net promoter score,
Wow.
which is like through the roof. So
Yeah.
families really love us. We deliver strollers, car seats, cribs, toys, all kinds of things. And we have, I think, the leading trust. I know we have the leading trust and safety program. So we have liability insurance that protects the company as well as the quality provider. That's what we call our supply, and the customer. And we do background checks. We know if any sort of inventory is on a recall. We really, really focus a lot on making sure, because families don't want to go to Craigslist to rent baby
Yeah.
gear. They want to know it's going to be clean and safe. And
Yeah.
that's really what we work on.
Amazing. Yeah. And going back to kind of your early roots of a two-sided marketplace, right? Where you're really, bringing both sides and your
Right.
experience with, a lot of the tech companies that have that business model. I would assume these partnerships that you build, VRBO, Hyatt, companies like that, was that a big part of the success and your feeling
Yeah,
of
I
that?
know from Match.com days that one, you need to get distribution, and one way to get distribution is to partner with others who are reaching your customers. So We really have a very focused strategy, and I think we're gonna get some bigger partnerships, um, coming down the pike. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Talk a bit about, I know you're expanding into new markets. You're in about 1,000 markets now with the brand. What are some of the things you're most excited about for the company, say over the course of the next year, Fran?
Yeah, one of the things we're excited is that we have proven that we could do the baby gear rental category. We don't think there's anybody leading in other rental categories. And so we're gonna start to, serve all those families that have pets with the things that they might need, crates, dog beds, what have you. We're also going to be serving people traveling to beaches and outdoor spaces with things like chairs and tents and coolers and stuff like that. So we're starting to build the foundation of what will eventually be GoQuip, which
Awesome.
is a platform for all kinds of things that you might want to have on the go.
Amazing. Amazing.
So we're
That's
excited.
exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And Fran, if folks want to follow you, what are some of the best channels to do that on?
Yeah, LinkedIn. So Fran Maier, Maier, and Fran at BabyQuip as well.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Fran, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story with us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Felina. So nice to see you.